Hello. This isn't meant to be a doom and gloom video. This isn't meant to be a crap on Destiny video. Honestly, the only video I care about making right now is my all exotic Destiny 1 video that is coming soon. But I was getting DM'd a bunch about Astrocross's video, the Destiny is a loot problem. I guess we got mentioned at some point in it, and then I was getting DM'd if I was going to react to it, which I'm not going to react to it, but I did give it a watch, and I just kind of want to give my opinion on why Destiny is a loot problem, and more so in general, why it feels like nothing matters. So, I made a PowerPoint. If you guys like how this presentation style of video goes, maybe I'll do it again in the future. Maybe. When I was a software developer, I used to make PowerPoints all the time for demos or for whatever else. And I was making one the other day. And so I was like, let me just make one for this too. All right, so let's get into it. Why nothing matters, or at least that's how it feels. What are some things that matter to me? I think this is the most important part first is if I'm going to ramble about why certain things don't matter, I should probably talk about what does matter. So, in my opinion, unique stories that I can run and tell my friends about matters. Jumping up and down moments, that matters to me. Exotics and other loot being rare and scarce, that very much matters to me. Loot having not just a purpose, but an identity, and I'll explain that when we get deeper into the PowerPoint. There being a legitimate chase to get things, and then lastly, my personal challenges, like the D1 challenge. And the only reason I did that is because of all these things above that, in my opinion, no longer exist, at least to the same capacity in Destiny 2. I miss feeling like this.
Over here. Okay, and then we're gonna go over to the left. And then in the middle, and oh!
This is why I do my challenges. For this feeling right here. This feeling right here. That dopamine. Like, I don't get this feeling. And I got this feeling in the first day of Destiny 1 in that challenge. But yeah, you get the point. All right. So now that we know what matters to me, let's talk about why I feel like things don't matter anymore. Starting off with the core of what made Destiny no longer exists. So in my opinion, what fundamentally made Destiny Destiny no longer exists in today's Destiny. We're going to start off talking about my favorite thing, exotics. You know, I've kind of, at this point, some people call me the exotic guy, so let's start here. We're going to start off with the tweet from Gathalion. Exotics don't feel like exotics is what I have this slide titled as. To be honest, exotics become marketing. To be honest, exotics becoming marketing for Destiny was, in my opinion, bad for the game. Questification and an abundance of agency to find exotic treasures diluted their value and the good feeling of obtaining them. Destiny players feel that buying content means top tier rewards are an eventuality instead of a chase. Not every player should be able to get everything in a loot game, is my personal belief. I know Bungie and their community have strayed from this to a formula that is afraid to hurt feelings or make people feel like their time isn't respected. Respectfully, though, F your time. Treasures should be treasures. I agree, and we're going to talk about it. Starting with exotics don't feel like exotics, which is what I said on that previous slide. So in my opinion, exotics in the old days of Destiny 1, and then even in the Forsaken 2, in the Forsaken Destiny 2 era, exotics were broken into two parts, in my opinion. The chase, which I'm going to call the mashed potatoes, and then the application, which I'm going to call the gravy. So the chase is the content aspect. That's where I'm grinding every single week in Crota and Vogue and Prison of Elders and Nightfalls and Crucible matches and everything else trying to get Gallahorn to drop. And that journey. The application or the gravy is where I use the mashed potatoes now in said, content across the game. So essentially, the grind to get the weapon happens. And then once I have the weapon, the application is taking that weapon into Crucible. It's using that weapon in a Nightfall. It's adding that weapon to your build or whatever the case may be. You used what you got and you engage in other content. So in my opinion, the engaging in the other content with the thing you got, that's the gravy. And then the mashed potatoes, like, you know what's gravy without mashed potatoes? The mashed potatoes is that journey to get what you're getting. Without the chase, all we really have is gravy. And I don't want plain gravy. At least personally, I don't know if y'all like plain gravy, but I don't like plain gravy. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. And then you'll see here on the side of the screen, this is where I got patience and time in the Destiny 1 challenge in the in an exotic, the Vault of Glass secret chest. You guys remember there's so many people that get Gallahorn here, Icebreaker here, so many crazy moments where people are getting, insanely incredible exotics from this chest. This chest is iconic, and if you don't remember staying up until 4 a.m. to hold this chest checkpoint and opening it up 3 times a week for Gallahorn, you probably weren't a Destiny 1 OG. The chase. And so I just showed my man right here. He got his. And look at that face. Look at that face. When he saw it, it looks like it's Tetra Ninja when he saw that Gallahorn drop. So let's talk a little more about the chase. But before we do that, to really talk about the chase, we need to talk about the de-evolution of the exotic chase. So I have a whole timeline for this. So we're going to talk about how we got here. D1 started off the golden age of the exotic chase. This is where things were scarce. This is where you had to struggle to get things. This is where the person who bottom fragged in the Crucible match got the Gallahorn and everybody was mad. It's where the person that only did one raid was the one who got it, and then he got kicked and the fire team was all mad at him. Or, you got something and you just stood in the tower just to be looked at like an exhibit. That was that era. Was it painful? Sure. But man, you jumped for joy when you got things, and they mattered. When you got something, it meant so much because it was so hard to get it. Then we got to vanilla D2, and that's when the exotic chase was killed. The exotic chase was killed for a moment, and then it got rezzed. We were in a respawn zone, luckily, but it did get killed. And exotics were just so easy to get in D2 at the beginning, and you were just being spammed with them from public events and all these other different things that it was very jarring going from D1 to D2. It's like, wait, what? I'm getting exotics from the story mission? Wait, really? And then it's like, oh, I'm getting all these engrams, really? And before you knew, you had everything. We were in shambles in the vanilla of D2, but for a lot of reasons, right? The exotic chase was the least of our problems at that point, right? Double primaries, no random rolls, I could go on forever, right? Then the exotic chase was restored in Forsaken. That's when, you went into the Crucible on week 1 of Forsaken, and it's like, why did that Titan just get an overshield? And why is he unkillable? And why am I dead? And every 2 seconds, you're being obliterated by One-Eyed Mask. Or you hear that, shing, 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 shing. And it's Gwynson Vest going back and forth across the Crucible map 6 times. And it's like, how does he still have his super? But then you did everything in your power to go get those exotics, even though they were random. You were trying everything in every which corner of the game to try to get these exotics, because it was crazy that we went back to that old school era of like in D1 where you got shot in one tapped with Hawkmoon or destroyed with OG Thorn or destroyed with the OG Vex Mythoclast. And then you're like, I got to go get those things, because they were so rare and scarce that when you first saw them, it was almost crazy. It's like, wait, what just happened? And you look and you're like, oh, whoa, what is that? And then you go grind for it. That was Forsaken. And that's when the exotic chase was restored. So luckily we had a res token. But now we're in a no respawn zone, figuratively. Next we had Shadowkeep. And that's where the death of random weapons chase happened. And so if you didn't know, a little bit of trivia, the final random drop exotic weapon, I feel like I'm a little exotic weapon or exotic historian. I'll just say not even weapons, but armor too, but they'll just call me the exotic historian. When Shadowkeep rolled around, we had the death of random weapons chase. That was one part of it. And so that's where Monte Carlo was actually the last random drop exotic weapon. And then after that, there was never another world drop exotic weapon in Destiny 2 that was new. And ironically, even Monte Carlo now you can just get from the timeline quest from doing Cade 6 and all that stuff. So really, that's not even a random drop anymore. On top of that, this was coupled by the beginning of the fall for exotic armor. It hadn't happened yet, so that's why I don't have it labeled here, but it was the beginning of it because there was still some randomness in the armor, but the launch armor exotics for Shadowkeep, those were in the campaign, so they started slowly inching in a direction that wasn't good. wasn't good. I mean, you had to do the campaign 3 times for those armor, and that was pain, but, like, it wasn't random anymore, the initial ones, and then there were some random ones after the, initial DLC came out. Then Beyond Light happened, and a lot of things happened here, right? I mean, what didn't happen here was sunsetting, content vaulting, all these different things, right? This was the end of the armor exotic randomness, the end of the armor exotic chase, and the annihilation of exotic quests. This is when exotic ciphers got introduced. All the exotic quests were in the kiosk, and it was a travesty on the exotic kiosk side. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're just talking about the chase right now. But yeah, there's no chase for exotic quests because everything's an exotic cipher now, and it's just so unfortunate. But on top of that, we had the end of armor exotic randomness, and that's when no longer was exotic armor world drops. That's when they became lost sector drops. And then when we got to Lightfall, they also introduced Vex incursions as well, but mainly we were in the lost sector era. So no longer were you discovering armor from all across the globe, you were getting it in one place. Did I love it? No, I actually hated it. But at least there was still a little bit of excitement from getting it to drop from the chest, not knowing how many times it would take, eventually getting it. And, you have a little moment. It wasn't the same, but, we had a moment. It wasn't great, though. And all of our experiences were the same. It was like, how did you get Laurely? Oh, I got it from a lost sector. Oh, how did you get Laurely? Oh, I got it from a lost sector. How did you get Laurely? Oh, I got it from a lost sector. How did you get Laurely? Oh, I got it from a lost sector. Versus like One Night Mask. Oh, I got it from Gambit. Oh, I got it from Strice. Oh, I got it from Nightfalls. Oh, I got it from the Forge. Oh, I got it from Scourge of the Past. Or like whatever, right? I'm just naming things, but you get what I mean. And then we have Final Shape, which was the death of the armor exotic chase. So it was on life support after Beyond Light, and it introduced lost sectors and whatnot. And then the death of it happened in Final Shape. That's where they just threw everything into the Cryptarch, into that table, where now you're discovering things like Speaker's Sight in the Cryptarch table, which we'll talk about it later, but absolute travesty. Just what a just nuking of what the exotic chase used to be. So that's how we got here. And here we are now in Final Shape, almost at Edge of Fate, but here we are. Destiny used to be a party chat story driven game. That sense of pride made things feel meaningful. What does it mean to be a party chat story driven game? That means when you're in the party chat, you're getting super excited to tell your friends, I just got that Gallahorn to drop. No way. I just got that icebreaker to drop from a Nightfall. No way. I just got that Luck in the Chamber Islota. No way. I just finally got that Matador with rifled and range and and all that to drop. No way. This game used to be driven on stories. That was why, Evan went and made his whole channel, because these community stories, we were a story driven game. Not a story in the sense of like campaign, but a story in the sense of our own personal stories. I had my own Gallahorn moment. You at yours. Get in the comments and tell me your Gallahorn moment. Mine was from a Crota end screen. And at the bottom, sometimes it would say that you got something, but you couldn't see it yet until the end screen actually happened. My friends in my clan, I remember were like, yo, you got Galley. I'm like, stop playing with me. Stop playing with me. Like, I thought they were lying. I was like, just stop trolling me. I don't got Galley. Stop playing with me. And I freaked out when I actually did have it. I'll never forget that. And I'm sure you guys won't forget your D1 Gallahorn moments. Let's talk about it. So this is when you tell your friends about your own unique stories. Weapon drops that made your friends hate you. I know there were a lot of people that weren't happy when they heard their friend get the Gallahorn after their first vault of glass, whatever. People were kicking people out of their clans. People were mad, and people were mad. But then at the same time, there was a sense of pride in what you got. Sometimes you would just sit in the tower and just leave your character there. And just let it, people just look at you when you had like the Nightfall aura over your head, or when you had Galley equipped, or when you had Icebreaker, or when you had maybe Pocket Infinity, or whatever you had, right? Or even, I remember, this is another memory, kind of a little aside, but like you finally go flawless in the lighthouse, you just leave your character there the whole weekend, because that's when the lighthouse was a social space. And so there'd be other people that could come there, and you just leave your character there. Be like, I made it. Oh man, I miss those days a lot. And then, like I said in the timeline, Shadowkeep was the last time we had unique exotic stories, because at that point everybody got their Monte Carlo in a different way. Everybody still got some of those later down the road seasonal exotic armor pieces in different ways. But then after Shadowkeep, the unique exotic stories died. Now, what's your exotic story? Tell me about how you got Speaker's Sight. I guarantee it was in one of two ways. You got it from the Final Shape campaign from the legendary version, or you got it from the Cryptarch. There's nothing else. You get all you discover, not attune, not focus, discover exotics. Exotics, this is Destiny. Exotics. You discover them in the Cryptarch, and not by taking engrams and then playing the slot machine, but no, by just getting your rank up and then choosing it. How did we fall so far? How can things mean anything when it's so trivial? And then weapon exotics. There's no uniqueness anymore. There's no party chat story to tell. You're going to tell me about how you got your trespasser? Tell me. Oh, well, I spent $10 and then I opened up my menu and then I scrolled to the season pass and then I hovered over it and then I held X or square or sorry, X or A or the enter key, and then it was in my inventory. Quest and missions, while I do love them, I mean, some of my favorite eras were the Whisper mission, the Outbreak 0 Hour original missions. Like those, don't get me wrong, those have their place for sure. But in reality, we all did get those exotics from the same place. We have the same story. Raid and dungeons, once again, there's a lot of excitement behind, you got your euphony in 10 tries, or I got mine in 1 try, or like, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, we all got it from the same place. We just don't have this uniqueness of where we're getting things anymore. It's dead. There's no reason to hop in the party chat and tell anybody in these things. So what it means is a lot of these exotics that we have, like I said, it can be fun to use them, but we have no real attachment to the journey. There's no journey anymore, and it's a lot. You care about things a lot more when there was a journey. Like take for instance, like I think about the first thing in mind, like that YouTube play button. Like if they just hand it to me and magically I had it, it really wouldn't have mattered. Like it wouldn't have meant as much to me. But I remember the last. Now it's going to be 9 years of doing this channel. And what it took to get to this point. I'm grateful. Thank you guys again for all the support. But I remember that journey. But if they would have just handed it to me, it's like, oh, and then it probably wouldn't be that special, because if they're handing it to me, they're probably handing it to everybody. And if everything is special, then nothing is. And so, that means a lot to me, because that journey I know we took, and we worked really hard collectively as a community here to get here. And so I appreciate it. I'm still grateful. Like never, will not be thankful for the position you guys put me in to be able to sit here and talk about yellow squares. But let's keep going. This ties back to exotics as well. So I know we're already talking about exotics, but I want to just continue on how this continues to tie back. That mentality of if everything's special, then nothing is, right? And we're going to be talking about this a lot as we continue to go. But I can tell you where you got these. Speaker Sight, Dragon's Breath, Trespasser. Like I said, I already named where you got your Speaker Sight. I already know you got your Dragon's Breath from the Season Pass. I know you got your Trespasser from the Season Pass. There's no excitement for you to come run and tell me. It doesn't really mean much. You got it in 2 seconds. I can't tell you where you got these on the second row. You have your own unique stories for One-Eyed Mask and how you got it, for Wave Splitter, for Gwenson, for Ursa, for Shards of Galanor. The list goes on, right? You got your own unique story for these. So what happens when there's no chase? So once again, like I mentioned, who wants gravy without mashed potatoes? Now, gravy's great. I'm all for gravy. All for gravy. It's funny, our clan name is the Gray Guardians. Like the community clans we have, and people always call it the Gravy Guardians. That's a little bit of an aside. But But yeah, who doesn't like gravy, right? But without the mashed potatoes, just gravy is. So what happens when there's no chase? The exotic chase was a fundamental and core aspect in the game. For me, it was the content. For a lot of the old D1 guard, a lot of the OGs that the things that I'm hitting on right now, the chase was a core aspect of the content. It's like not just, it's not this arbitrary thing. It was what we were doing each week to get to these treasures, as Gothalion called them. So recapping, exotics have two parts. They have the chase and they have the application. Without the chase, we only have the application. And what does that mean outside of me saying that it's just the gravy? It means the bulk of the content is gone, which is the chase. The chase is the content, in my opinion. This is just how I feel about it. You have less pride in what you have because, like I said, if you're just handed something and everybody's just handed someone, what's there to have any pride about it? We all got something, then where's the pride in it? Instant gratification, which leads to desensitization, which is another thing that Gothalion was talking about in that tweet. If we're just the second we hit we pull out our wallet, we expect all these things to instantly be in our inventory. We're very used to getting things now, and if something doesn't come instantly, it's like, whoa, I paid for this, it's mine. But in theory, I paid $60 for D1, but Galahorn was nowhere near mine. Icebreaker was nowhere near mine. That Thorn Quest for sure wasn't mine. I paid. I paid for the opportunity to get them. And that's what we've lost. Now it feels like we pay to have when we used to pay for the opportunity. But I will say there is a community that I'm sure is okay. And that's why there's going to be friction with some of the things I'm saying. There's going to be pushback, and that's fine. And I don't mind. I really want everybody to get in the comments and be honest about how you feel. And if you disagree or if you agree, but just make sure you always tell me why. Just make sure it's why. Don't just be like, Strimmer, you suck. Tell me a reason why I suck. And I'll be happy to hear it. But in my opinion, the build community is happy though, because if your jam is making builds and being a killing machine, and there's nothing wrong with this. This is perfectly fine. But this is the game for you these days, right? If it's just you want a bunch of different toys to try to become an art killing machine or a void killing machine or a strand killing machine or whatever the case may be, and you just want the shiny exotic so you can just figure out how to slot it into your build, then I'm sure you're happy. And maybe that's fun. I'll concede on that. I'm sure that's fun. There's a ton of people that love their builds, so I'm sure it's fun. Never going to dispute that. But is it meaningful, those things that you have? Not really. Not really. It doesn't really matter that much. The takeaway from at least this segment is the game, especially for players like me, not for everybody, but for players like me, feels very soulless. And you may just be like, well, this is, you're a content creator. Of course you want this stuff. But in reality, exotics coming to me instantly, that would be great for me from a content perspective. I remember when I used to only make shorts on this channel for a while, there'd be times you get the season pass exotic instantly. I try it for 5 minutes. We laugh about it, joke about it. I throw up a short, and those were growing the channel fast. Those were supporting me financially well. Just being transparent. And everything I'm preaching right now goes against all of that. Because this isn't me coming at this from me being CB or me being cbgray, or this is coming from Christian. This is how Christian likes to experience the game. How I like to experience the game. Because we bought something, are we entitled to it? Let's go through this again. I'm going to say it one more time. Because we bought something, are we entitled to the associated weapon on release? This is what I just talked about it before. In my opinion, we used to buy for the opportunity. Now we buy to have. We've developed the expectation that because we bought it, we should have everything upon credit card swipe. Buying the exotics versus buying the right to earn the exotics. And unfortunately, as I've mentioned, we've strayed from the latter. I believe season pass weapons are also a big contributor to killing the chase. We've had top tier weapons that we get just for existing. Witherhoard, Ariana's Vow, Dragon's Breath. I could go on and on. We got those just for existing. In my opinion, I don't believe that's how the season pass should work. I think, once again, you should buy for the opportunity. Throw it in the world. I buy Season of Arrivals. Witherhoard can randomly drop. Maybe I get it in the raid. Maybe I get it in the Nightfall. Maybe I don't get it for months and I'm, crying every week, but then I finally jump out of my seat and lose it on week 7 when I finally get it. And then I remember that forever. Versus remembering on the day of arrivals, clicking the X button when hovering over the season pass. Does everyone have to be a winner? If everything is special, is anything special? That's what we were just talking about a little bit ago. If we're all winners, then no one's a winner. And everybody can't be a winner. Does everybody have to be a winner? It feels like these days everyone has to be a winner. And that's kind of the lens that it feels like Bungie's working with right now, is that they need to make the game with everyone being a winner in mind, so no one gets left out, so no one's feelings are hurt. And trust me, I'm horrible at this game. I'm horrible at it. I'm no Bog. I'm no Snazzy. I'm no Walla. I'm not taking anybody to the lighthouse. I'm not, what world's first belts do I have in this house? Well, actually, I got 2, but they're sweats. But what world's first do I have to my name? How many flawlesses do I have to my name? So this is coming from the lens of not even an elitist, in the sense of I'm not even going to be getting some of the things that I'm advocating for because I'm not, the player that some of the community is. But it's gratifying when I knew I was bad at trials and I tried hard and learned to get to the point where I eventually did make it there, and I could get those really cool Rise of Iron glows. I could get honors and Gift of the 9 from Trials of the 9, even though people had a lot of gripes about it. One thing I will say is I wanted that horse emblem, and I wanted that Gift of the 9. I still wear it now. I'll tell you what, it's one of the few things in this game people are still like, whoa, what's that from? We've gotten to the point where if everyone can't have something, it's a problem that Bungie needs to solve. And that's an issue. That's a problem within itself. When you are getting killed by an OG one-eyed mask, and I talked about this before, and like I said, if you're an OG D2 player, you remember this era. It didn't feel good. I mean, it didn't feel good. One-eyed mask was insane. And you hated your life. But you grinded to get it, and when you did, it felt great. And it made the application half of things, the gravy, feel that much better. Because, man, I just worked my butt off for this one-eyed mask. Week after week after week, I finally got it. Now I'm going to go terrorize everybody. Versus just getting it and everybody has it. And then it doesn't feel as special because everybody already has it at the same time. And then it doesn't feel like it matters as much, unfortunately. When you were getting almost one-tapped by Thorn in D1, it felt horrible. It did. Heck, I think there was a time you could get one tap by Hawkmoon. Hawkmoon was one-tapping. But everybody and their mom was grinding to get one. That Thorn quest sucked. You get 10 kills, it felt like you got a point. You die once, it felt like you lost 70. But man, when you finished that Thorn quest, when you finished it, if you're a D1 OG, you remember. I know you remember. It felt good. And then it's just like when you finally got your hands on it, it's like, whoa. Like I say, you just stand there in the tower. It just really meant something. It felt like it had meaning. How do we fix exotics? Like I said, yes, I'm coming to this in the lens of telling why things don't matter in all of that jazz, but I do want to make sure I'm also coming at it from the side of, well, what feedback do I have, or how do I think we can fix it, or else I don't think this is coming at this from with good faith. I think it's just me yapping. How do we fix exotics? Exotic weapons should be random world drops if they aren't tied to certain activities like dungeons, raids, exotic missions, quests, etc. Get me back to those dopamine moments. Get me back to that excitement. Buying the season pass should add weapons to your exotic loot pool, not give them to you outright. Earn them. Buying doesn't mean ours, it means opportunity to be ours. Exotic armor being discovered in the Cryptarch table is a travesty, and it is. It really is. Make armor discovery for world drops. The table in Lost Sectors as well should never be for discovery, only for attunement and focusing. I'm going to say it again. Lost Sectors and the Cryptarch table should never, 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 ever be for discovery. It should be for attunement. It should be for focusing. In my opinion, do away with the exotic engram drops in Lost Sectors. Like, where now it doesn't even drop an armor piece anymore, it's just an engram. Like, where's the excitement in that? Go back to random armor dropping in there. Use Lost Sectors as a way to attune the type of exotic types we want to farm. How cool would that have been on Beyond Light? It's like, okay, you want to make that shift? Fine. Exotic armor still drops randomly in the world. So you're grinding, trying to get whatever you're going for, right? Let's just say whatever exotic that is you're going for. We can just use Lorelei because we were using it before as an example, but any exotic works. You finally get Lorelei to drop in the world, and then you go to the tower, you choose helmet for attunement, and then now when you're doing Lost Sectors, it's mainly dropping helmets. How cool would that have been? Basically Into the Light. And you saw how well Into the Light worked. Felt like it had meaning, those shiny weapons and those drops, because they weren't just handed to you. They make it mean a little bit more. And then I'm open. Like, I don't want to just be so one-sided. Like, I understand that not everybody's going to think like me. I get it. Not everybody's from this same era that, like, I'm kind of talking about and kind of representing, to be honest. But I'm open to there being still a way of focusing exotics from the table. I'm not saying the Cryptarch table needs to be done away with. I think we could, like, if there's a currency or something that we can focus from there outside of just being spammed exotic engrams. Oh my gosh, we're gonna talk about that in a second. But I'm okay with there being a way to focus from the table. I'm not just so far on the old school train. Like, I'm okay finding a compromise and a balance. Let's get back to secret raid chests being a place to discover exotics. Secret raid chests just dropping the same rated weapons that we already have in our, that we've already discovered is boring. Or for red borders is boring. All that's boring. It's boring. I miss when I'm staying up until 5 a.m. when I got computer science classes in like 2 or 3 hours because I need galley. I need icebreaker. Heck, I just needed the ascendant energy in to make sure I could get to 30. Or the radiant energy. Remember that in Crota? That's why I can get 32. Oh man. Let's bring back some excitement in the raid chests. Let's get back to randomness. If we can get random world drops back, let's sprinkle them into the raids too. Guess what? It'll make people play them. It made us play them back in the day. This is small. This is a little bit of an aside, but I'm still going to mention it. I think Xur should be in random locations again. I think Xur already, like, I know they're trying to do a little bit more to make him a little more relevant for not just new players, but also returning players. But a little bit of Xur was just a little bit of the magic and the tradition. And it was like kind of the breath and the heartbeat of Friday mornings is, where is Xur? That was a saying, like, how, like, for a while, even after they changed the word light to power, everybody still said light. Or when TWAB became TWID, everybody still said TWAB. It doesn't even feel right, just like not saying where is Xur and just having Xur just like on Friday. It's still like where is Xur videos, even though we know where Xur is. I would go back to making them random and make them random all over the place. Just send them everywhere. Send them to the Dreadnought. You can go anywhere. Send them anywhere. I don't even care. I know the Dreadnought's not like permanent or whatever, but send them wherever. I'm just spitballing, but I think we should go back to some excitement for Xur, in my opinion. There's a lot of Where is Xur channels that now can't even do what they did for, like, almost a decade because of just a pointless change, in my opinion. Add some of that excitement back, some of that soul back, some of that, oh, it's Friday. That make it meaning something. Let me tune in. Okay, sorry. I'm going to say the forbidden word next. I'm going to say it. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. Sunsetting. Bring it back. We're going to talk more about it later and explain. Please just bear with me. Don't run to the comments yet. Please. Don't run there yet. I know I said the word. I did say sunsetting. Just bear with me. And then lastly, at least on this page, kill exotic ciphers. Just kill them. Kill them. How about the old exotic quests? We put them in the random weapon pool where you can just discover Izanagi's burden in anywhere. You can discover it in Salvation's Edge. You can discover it in Wellspring, or you can discover it doing the campaign, or like wherever, right? Just like I'm just saying, just discover it wherever. Because it's just such a travesty, in my opinion, to new players. Just they wait for Xur to come, and then they grab his exotic cipher quest, and they do a bunch of strikes, and they go back to the tower, and then they hover over the weapon, and then they claim it, and that's it. Versus you find the mysterious box, you make all 3 forges, Maximum Temper, Volunder, Gofan, and Izanami. Then you go to Leviathan and you kill the Watchers, and then you have to wait for that rare bounty, but it's so rare and it's taking forever and it won't drop, and then it finally drops, and then you have to wait for it to be the curse week because it's not the curse week, and then it finally becomes the curse week. So you can go to Shattered Throne, you can get your Ascendant Glass, then you do the hard mode Pyramidian strike, and then you go to Bergusia Forge and you finish that final mission. Why do I remember that? Because it meant something. It meant something. How do I remember that? But I remember that. I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. But no new players remember that. New players are just looking at me like, like I was crazy, like I was having some like episode. It's like, what are you talking about? Like this dude's like off his rocker. I turned 30, but I'm not off my rocker yet. Yeah, that's what I got for this slide. And then one more thing on exotics before we move on. And no inventory screen should ever look like this. And everybody's does. Yours does. I know it does. Open up your inventory right now if you're in the game while you're watching this video. I bet it looks like this. Exotics are as common as green engrams in D1. And I remember when in D1, when we were getting spammed with green engrams, we were calling for them to be auto-dismantled. I'm calling for exotic engrams in D2 in 2025. What's the date today? It's May 24th. I'm calling for exotics to be auto-dismantled. They're that common. It's just like, you just get them like candy these days. Auto-dismantle them until they mean something, in my opinion. I'm not serious, but I kind of am. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to talk about it. Don't pull out the pitchforks yet. I know you got them. Just all I'm asking is just leave it down for now. Just leave it down for now. If you're going to come with me with the pitchforks, fair. But let's get through this first. And then you can pick up your pitchfork. Actually, please don't pick up the pitchfork. Let's just have a conversation in the comments. I'm going to try to respond to everything. So let's just have a conversation. Sunsetting versus content vaulting. So, my opinion is that 99% of the community doesn't know the difference between these two terms. They just use sunsetting interchangeably for both of these terms. And in my opinion, Bungie never did a good job of differentiating between the meaning of these two different terms. And they use them so loosely that everything feels like it's sunsetting. And because of that, I think there's so much friction on sunsetting because of how poorly it was handled in Beyond Light that they can never do sunsetting again, even though sunsetting was introduced in Taken King. And I thought it went pretty well. But now that we have the association with sunsetting, meaning you lose all your shiny planets and raids and everything else, crucible maps and whatever else, quests. And people are like, I hate sunsetting. No, that is content vaulting you hate. So let's talk about it. Content vaulting is bad. So taking away our planets, bad. Taking away our raids, bad. Taking away our crucible maps, bad. Taking away our missions, horrible. Quests, just so sad. And, now we got exotic ciphers, all so bad. Sunsetting, good. Refreshing the chase that we were talking about, that chase. We wouldn't have cared about anything in Taken King if we could have still just used Galahorn, Fatebringer, and Valen Verdict. If you already had all your tried and trues, why use anything else? I bet everybody in Kingsfall would on the day one would have ran in with those things. But go look at what people are using on day one Kingsfall. We'll get into it in a second. But I promise you, it wasn't any of that. Taken King introduced sunsetting. Most people don't even know that. Most people would not have even, and not saying people were happy about it. When people are mad. Don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody grinded so hard for Gallahorn and Icebreaker and Pocket Infinity, all these different things, and Bungie's like, sorry. I know it doesn't feel good. I also don't like losing things I worked hard for, but I also understand the purpose. I don't like it either, but there's a purpose in it. There's a purpose. And I don't think anybody would even given any of the Taken King stuff a chance if we still just had all our tried and trues. With no sunsetting, what happens? Power creep. The problem is right now there's nothing I need. There's nothing I need. And I'm putting need. Not that you can want things. There's plenty of things I'm sure I want. There's nothing that I need to get to participate in the highest level activities in the game. So a lot of you guys know that I collected every single Destiny 1 exotic in one stream. So I didn't play D2 for 63 days. That was how long the subathon was. And then it took another 60 days, or I took another 60 days off where I didn't play any video games at all for 60 days. So I didn't play Destiny for the longest period ever that I hadn't played Destiny 2, which was 120 plus days. And what did I return to? So two different things. I remember I came back to host Vesper's host Dungeon Zone. And so after World's First happened, I was checking in on different channels, just checking to see what people were, doing, and if people were getting their icebreaker and what everybody was using. And what did I see? Everyone's using Grand Overture, the Witch Queen launch season pass weapon. Sunder Doctrine, same deal. Hey, what are all the cool kids using in Sunder these days? Queenbreakers, Lord of Wolves, Anarchy. What year am I in? What year am I in? You could have put me in a coma. Or not put me, like you could have put me in a coma or froze me in some cryopod or whatever back in 2019, woke me up 6 years later, and I'd be like, man, I probably got to catch up. I'm probably behind. I don't got any other weapons I need. And they'd be like, no, you're good, man. You're good. You got all the meta weapons. I'd be like, but how? I've been in a coma for 6 years. There's no way I got what we're using. And then I look and I'm like, wait, is that Anarchy? Is that Queenbreakers? And that's the issue. It's like, why do any of these other shiny toys matter if they're not needed? Then they're not. It's just as sad as they're just not needed. And I get it. Like I said, again, it doesn't feel good to lose our shiny tried and trues, but it does make it where things don't matter as much. It's just an objective fact. I was able to come back after not playing 120 days and participate in Sunder like it was nothing. There's no problem. It's hard to engage with new DLC stuff when you have when you have all of your shiny toys already and they already do just fine. I would have loved if while prepping for Salvation's Edge, we could have only used final shape weapons. I miss watching. I'm going to go back to Last Wish for a second. When Sweat went into Last Wish and he was using a Duke. Go back and watch the VOD. He was using Duke, not because it was his favorite, because it's all he had. Everybody just had to use whatever they had, and that's what made the day one race even more interesting. You kind of just had to use what you had. You had to engage with the new content, engage with the new DLC, and good luck with whatever you find. But guess what? If sunsetting didn't exist then, he would have been using, it's just like, I mean, and with going from year one to year two, the sunsetting was a little different. It was just more so we went from not random rolls to random rolls. So I realized there was no sunsetting then, but there being that change in basically dynamic that required grinding for the new stuff. That was really cool. Also, let's go back to Taken King. I remember with Goth. Go back and watch his OG Kingsfall day one. He was using some random fusion rifle and a bunch of other random stuff. And it wasn't because he liked that stuff. He might have, I might have been enjoying it for the week, but it's because it's all he had. He had to use what he had. And then they were able to come out and, kill orcs, right? And that was the cool part. You took all these things you found from the Dreadnought and all this whatnot, and you used that stuff. Part of the magic was engaging in the new stuff. But now it's like, I watch Salvation's Edge, and for the majority of it, I'm seeing a bunch of old stuff. And don't get me wrong, there's some new stuff. There's still hunts, and that was cool. But in general, I've seen a lot of old stuff too. A lot of tried and trues, a lot of the same armor I've seen the last, a lot of years. And I know that we have a new armor rework coming, and we'll see how that does. But in general, it's just I didn't see a lot of engaging in the new stuff, and I think a compromise that I'd be willing to concede to, because I don't want to make it where everybody's miserable. But I do almost wish, not even saying everybody would be. I think people would actually have a lot more fun. But I know it'd be a lot of friction trying to get people to see that lens. But what I will say is I do wish, maybe let's just call it the first week, or maybe even just until World's First happens for either the raid or the dungeon. Only the new stuff will be viable. So like after, if I want to go into, let's just use Sunder Doctrine because it's the most recent thing. After, if I want to go in with Queensbreakers, Lord of Wolves, whatever, cool, 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 cool. That's fine. But you're not gonna be using that stuff then. You better go find some, episode heresy stuff. You better go play a bunch of heresy and find something that's going to benefit you. I wish that was another layer of contest. Maybe that would be a happy medium. Maybe you can engage in all of the content with anything that you want after the first week. But if you want to really participate at a high level in the first couple of weeks, you got to use the new stuff. I think that could be a happy medium. You let me know if I'm tripping on that. I'm really trying to see this from both ways. But in my opinion, I just wish it was a full reset. But I could concede to some sort of middle ground. What's the result of this? Nothing matters. Or at least it feels that way. Like I said, I could have been in that cryopod for 6 years, come back and still play like it's nothing. Why go for anything if my shiny toys from where I was in college still work? Bro, we've been using Queen Breakers forever. We've been using Lord of Wolves forever. They've been using Anarchy forever. This coupled with crafting is a recipe for disaster. So why don't we talk about crafting? Oh, whoops. All right. Crafting. Crafting, and this is a saying I've always said, at least I say it in my streams a lot, but if you're not in the streams, you probably never heard it. But I'm going to say it again. Crafting should never be to dominate, only to participate. Let me say it again. Crafting should never be to dominate, only to participate. In my opinion, right now, people are able to come into the game and craft something that's top tier, and you can be a DPS machine with minimal to no effort these days. In my opinion, crafting should be, hey, I just started playing Destiny. Is there anything, I can use just to kind of get into the rate group and then hopefully get some better stuff? It's like, yeah, craft this and you'll be able to participate. You won't do that well, but, I'll get you in there. That's where I think crafting should be. But not for domination, not where I'm crafting absolute god killing machines like forbearance. Absolutely not. So let's talk about that for a little bit, because I know you see forbearance here on the bottom part of the screen. Why go for a 99% effective weapon? And I'm using arbitrary numbers, so don't tie too much stock into these numbers. But why go for a 99% effective weapon that takes an extremely long time to get and is extremely hard, extremely painful, brutal to get, if I can just craft a normal 97% version of it that's almost just as good, minusculely worse? Let's just do an exercise. How many people have this on the left? I bet every single one of you guys have forbearance crafted at that. Now on the right side, how many people didn't bother getting that? I bet you don't have a forbearance adept. I know I don't. Why would you? Why would you? There's a lot of things that we don't engage with because there's no purpose. Why would we? So let's take this a little bit further. We're gonna take this concept further. But before we do, because I want to build on what we were talking about with forbearance, but before we do, this also killed the screenshot era that I call it. This is the run and tell your friends era. The exotic chase elimination also was responsible for this as well. But it caused a similar thing where, no one's running to say that they screenshot that I just got Dragon's Breath. Why would you, right? Everybody got it from the season pass. But the screenshot era used to be, Look at these tweets. Just got a decent IS Luna, hot swap, brace frame, and luck in the chamber. I got a pretty good IS Luna today. I'm loving it. Steady hand, rangefinder, small bore, luck in the chamber. First ever IS Luna, rangefinder, reinforced barrel, and luck in the chamber at MTest. Shout out to MTest. There used to be this excitement to run to Twitter, run to Facebook, run to wherever, you're on Discord or the forums or whatever the case may be, Reddit, and screenshot what you got. But nowadays, with a lot of things, and I know Bungie's trying to get a little bit better with this, but it's still just, we're just not there. But what's the purpose of screenshotting a good roll you got when you can just craft an even better version of it in another maybe few days, right? There's not a lot of reason to run on Twitter and say, hey, look, I got this insane roll on for Barons, when I know that I'm 1 or 2 red borders away from crafting it. So there's no real excitement. You don't even save god rolls anymore. Why would you save a god roll? It's like, well, I mean, this is a cool roll, but I'll keep it, I guess, for a little bit until I get my last 2 red borders, and then I'm gonna eat it. It don't mean anything anymore. There's no excitement over god rolls for the most part. Not in general, but for the most part, there's not a lot of excitement when most things you'll just be able to craft. And crafting really ruined this a lot. Power creep also ruined this a lot too, because it's like, well, why care about certain things being good if I already have other things that are good? But all of these things come together and have killed the screenshot era. There's still a few aspects I know. Like, I know you guys could be like, oh, why I got a god roll from the Nightfall and I screenshotted that. But it's just like, but just in general, there's not a lot of reason when crafting's in place to be sending a bunch of screenshots to your friends, especially not for exotics too. Like, I mean, you're not going to screenshot that you got Red Death reformed. You're just not. Crafting doesn't belong in raids. I know this can be controversial, but it's, in my opinion, it's just the truth. It never should have belonged. There's only been one objectively successful master raid. Do you know what it is? I'll give you a second. Maybe? Do you know? Let's see if you know. Master Vault of Glass. The real question, though, is why? Why did Master Vault of Glass succeed versus every other Master Raid which failed? Crafting at the time of Master Vault of Glass didn't exist. People would not have cared about their time lost Fatebringer if they could have just crafted a normal one. But you couldn't craft a normal one. So what happened? Master Templar was jumping. It was jumping. It just was. There's no way to put it. It was jumping. Twitch viewership soared. Everybody was popping. Chats were popping. Everybody was coming in to help. Streams trying to get it. It's because it mattered. People cared. People were excited. People cared. What's the state of Master Raids now? They're in a miserable state. No one will bother on adept weapons, even if there are 5 slots of the perks that you can enhance. I know Salvation's Edge tried to do 3. Maybe in the Edge of Fate raid, maybe they'll try to do 4. Maybe the next one they'll do 6. Maybe the next one they'll do 40. But no one cares. And that's partially because crafting just shouldn't be in the raid in general. It's also partially because we just have so many other things. Like I said, again, with there being no sunsetting, it's just we already have good stuff. Why do we need more good stuff? Eventually it just becomes a point where do you really need more good stuff? But regardless, this isn't helping our case at all. When I can just a few slides ago, I can just craft the normal for Barons. Why would I ever do Master Val? Why would I ever do it? There's no point. Why would I ever do it? The majority of the community outside of Master Vault of Glass, they only have adepts. And admit this, and I'm not saying that everybody, but majority, in my opinion, only have adepts if they got them from Pantheon. Only had them if they came from Pantheon. Pantheon did a better job distributing them than their original source. That was a temporary thing. But there's no point. There's no point. Why would you? There's just really no point. Why would you? There's no purpose. Crafting doesn't belong in raids. It makes it where everything doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People were so excited when Praetorian Foil dropped. That thing didn't even exist, it felt like, or Fatebringer or Black Hammer. Who was excited? Everybody was excited when Black Hammer finally, dropped for you. Yeah, it was scarce, but when you finally got it, you were hyped. It was really cool. But yeah, all that to say, if you can already craft a 97% Fatebringer, you wouldn't have cared about Time Lost. The only reason people cared about Time Lost is because crafting didn't exist for Master Vogue. If crafting would have existed with Master Vogue, it would have also failed. No one would be in it. All right, so we're going to sum this segment up. To sum this up, it's hard to care about anything when there's a combination of lack of sunsetting, power creep, and crafting exists. And I leave you with this graphic for this slide. These are the Salvation's Edge weapons. And this is so crazy. I realized this the other day, and I asked Sweat a question on this when we were in the kitchen the other day. But I can't name any of these weapons. At the time when I first saw this, just the other day, I couldn't name one of them. And then I asked Sweat too. I was like, "Yo, can you name any Salvation's Edge weapons?" And he's like, "Only because one of them's a meme in his chat. So now I can name one, but I don't even know which weapon it is. But the Sun and Bottom or something like that." He said it's a meme, and I guess in his community. And so he knows that one, but he didn't know any of the other ones. And I'm sure a lot of people don't. I don't know any of these. But can you imagine if you showed me Fatebringer if I didn't know it? Or Atheon's Epilogue and I didn't know it? Or if I didn't know Abyss Defiant? Or Black Hammer? Or Hunger of Crota? Or Word of Crota? Or Chaos Dogma? I don't know any of these weapons. And that's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that I don't know any of these weapons. But why? It hasn't changed my ability to participate in the game at all. I don't need any of these weapons to succeed. Power levels are no longer locked behind raids like they were back in the day to make it where I even need to keep going in here. I can get to max level just being a season pass warrior, which we're going to talk about power level here in a little bit too. But there's no purpose of being in these raids, so why be in them? I can't imagine what Master Salvation's Edge looks like these days. How rough is that? Get in the comments if you've been trying to do Master Salvation's Edge. I can't imagine what that looks like these days. But yeah. Why did the core modes stop mattering? We're going to talk about the core next. First, I must ask a few questions. Who ran D1 strikes for hours and hours at a time back in the day? Who grinded for Cloakatanics? Who grinded their face off for the meatball for Malfeasance? Who had a 21% delirium or breakneck? Who played Elim every night until they got a luck in the chamber IS Luna or a Matador or something to that effect? Who grinded 2100 or 5500 for the Pinnacle weapons like Recluse, Mountaintop, Not Forgotten? Who grinded for the Trials glows in Rise of Iron? What happened? It's hard to care when loot has no identity, first off. So Shadowkeep marked the end of not only, like I said, the random weapon era, and also where we started teetering off of the random armor exotic era. There's one more era that got killed in Shadowkeep. Yeah, it casted a big shadow. It was the end of the strike-specific loot era. So back in D2, now I know in D1 we had a bunch. You guys already know about the D1 side. You already know about the Grasp of Malak or the Ala Cool helmet or the Scion Flare cloaks or Devil's Dawn or I go on forever, right? You know about that era. But in D2, we also had it. DFA came from Tree of Probabilities. The Pyramidian Strike had Silicon Neroma. Duty Bound came from Savathun's Song. The Universal Wave function came from Garden World. I still remember this stuff. And you had other things too, to the effect of like Tilt Fuse, Impact Velocity, Malicious Birthright from Lake of Shadows. I can go on. Just the more of the stories I remember, and they mattered to me when I was grinding those things because they had an identity to them. Even more so in D1 because they had that aspect of you wear what you fight. I fight Tanix, I take his cloak. You take, you kill Malak, you get the hood of Malak, and whatnot. But let's talk about it for a second. So with Shadowkeep, this marked the end of the strike-specific loot era. We got Scarlet Keep with the boss being, it was Hashladum, but I don't know if you might not have known this, but Hashladum is Crota's daughter. So there's a lot of magnitude in this strike. And I'm a big strike purist. I am. So when I was like, whoa, Hashladum, Crota's daughter. Wait, what? That's insane. What's her strike loot gonna be? What's it gonna be? Am I gonna get to wear her helmet? Maybe the cloak, because she's like a wizard. She's kind of got that like cloak thing going on. Maybe it's a warlock bond, kind of like Omnigul. Maybe it's a pulse rifle like Omnigul. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it's something, right? Maybe it's something. It's just gonna be something. But there was nothing, and that was jarring. And we're going to talk about that in a second, because then I was like, wait, I feel like I just saw a shift happen right under my eyes. But first, let me also mention that the same thing also can be said for Festering Core, the other strike that most of you guys, I promise, don't know about. I'm sure some of you guys do, but I'm sure at least get in the comments and admit if you forgot Festering Core. Not saying you never knew it, but if you forgot Festering Core even existed. It was the shortest lived strike in Destiny history. But to continue on my point, it's like Hash Ladoon doesn't have strike loot. How? How's that possible? How's it possible? And then I go into Eververse and I see a red hive themed ship. I go into Eververse and I see a red hive themed sparrow. I'm like, whoa, wait. Why aren't those strike loot, or at least in Pit of Heresy? But wait, why isn't that with Hash Ladoon? Why didn't I, kill Hash Ladoon and get this? Why didn't I get the Blood Runner? And like I said, there was Sparrow strike specific loot pre Shadowkeep. Like I said, tilt, fuse, and impact velocity. And then there was a ship, universal wave function. So I was like, wait, why aren't these attached to the strike anymore? Why aren't I grinding the strike for this? There used to be I see you have something, and I'm like, I know where you got it. You got Cloak of Taniks. I know you got that in Taniks. You got the Dark Blade's helm. I know you fought Alakul. You had the Scion blue cloak, and I knew you. Not only did you go to the Dust Palace, but you killed that Arc Scion last. I knew a lot of things. Identity. Identity gives pride, and it makes things matter. And they just stopped. What's the problem with no identity? If I see Ricky Bobby 624 get a Xenoclast or a Royal Entry, I have no idea what strike he got it from. So if you're not familiar with Xenoclast or Royal Entry, it was a shotgun that just could drop from any strike at the time. And Royal Entry was the rocket that could just drop from any strike at the time. If I see somebody with Royal Entry, yeah, I know they played a strike, but I have no idea where you got it. I'm not going to look and be like, you were in Glassway. I'm not going to look and be like, you were in Birthplace of the Vile. I have no idea where you were if you got the Xenoclast. But if I see Ricky Bobby 624 get any of these, I know exactly what strike he got it from. Let us wear what we fight too. Let me see it. Let me kill Hash Ladoon and have something Hash Ladoon related. Same deal with all these other strikes. If I see Devil's Dawn, I know you were in Sepix. If I saw Cloak of Taniks, I knew you fought Taniks and did the Shadow Thief. If you did the Grasp of Malak, I knew you were in there farming Omnigul. Maybe using Celestial and one tap in her so you could farm it. And then the Darkblade's helm, saying, I knew you were in Alakul. Whatever Scion Flare Cloak you went, I knew what strike you did, and I know what order you did it in. And people would just stand with those things. You would just stand. You would just stand. And just be observed. You just turn into an exhibit. People are like, I knew where you got that from. And then it made other people want to go do those things. Because right now, outside of, maybe I want to do strikes for my 3 exotic engrams for the week, or maybe I want to do strikes because I get a Pinnacle, or maybe I do strikes because that's pretty much it, to be honest. But maybe I did it for those reasons. But once those reasons go away, once you have all the exotics, once you already have all your power and your max power, and like I said, power doesn't even matter anymore. Why would you ever go into individual strikes anymore? So what used to help the health of the game was you went into individual strikes for individual pieces of loot. And then we strayed from that. So now there's no reason to ever load into a strike individually. Now it's like you run your Vanguard Ops, you get 17 battlegrounds anyway, so you're never even going to see these strikes regardless. But the off chance, the random, planets aligning where you do get a strike, it doesn't matter. But there's no reason to go into individual strikes. The individual strikes used to be very healthy. I can still load into, this is crazy. This is a true story. Because like I said, I was playing D1 for 63 days on the subathon. You can still load into Valista Art, the strike, and load in with people that are farming treads upon stars. It's still happening to this day. It added a whole different layer to the grind. It's like, okay, yeah, I can farm nightfalls, I can farm raids, I can farm all these things, but then there's individual strikes that I can farm for pieces of gear too. That adds a layer to the core and adds health to the core and gives you things that matter and that you care about. Versus these things that you don't know from Adam where you got these things from. And so when there's no identity associated with certain things, there's a lot less pride in them. And there's not a lot of people looking at shit and, giving you that like affirmation of, whoa, what is that? Or where's that from? Or knowing where that's from. Okay. The next question is, did Grandmaster Nightfall solve this? So in my head of like, I really do think that Bungie thinks that Grandmaster Nightfall solved this, but they didn't. And I'll explain. Tell me where you got any of these, the Slammer, the Pally, the Swarm. Tell me where you got it. Tell me where you got that. Falling in. Like, I have it on. Tell me where I got it. I got the Slammer. Where did I get it from? Where did I get Pally? Where did I get the Swarm? You can't tell me. You don't know where I got it. You know I did a Grandmaster. You'll know where I got it. No one sees Pally and says, you did Glassway. No one does that. No one says that. No one looks at Swarm and says, you got that from Scarlet Keep. I don't have any identity association to any of these weapons, so there's not a lot of pride in them. You can be excited that you got a good roll, sure. I'm not going to argue that. Like, you can be happy that your Slammer got Eager's Edge. I was happy when mine got Eager's Edge. But that's kind of the end of it. There's not that additional layer of things having identity, so they have a separate meaning outside of just what can they do. It shouldn't just always be what can it do. It should be what does it represent and what was the journey. Right now, all I feel like we have in this game now is what does it do? Not what's the journey and what does it represent. That's all we have these days is what do. What do. Let's talk about Gambit now. Gambit isn't actually bad in my opinion. I know. I'm serious. Brace yourself. We're going to talk about Gambit. I know. I'm sorry. But Gambit isn't actually bad. Or well, it's no worse than anything else. In my opinion, Gambit was a Corvette that was left on the side of the road in the sun for years. No matter how cool the car is, no matter how great the Corvette is, you leave a car on the side of the road for 5 years, give it no updates, give it no maintenance, it's going to look like this. And that's Gambit. There was a time Gambit was jumping. But let's talk about that in a second here after this question that I ask you next. But the next slide here, and maybe this is a little bit, like of a hot take, but it's just in my opinion, it's just the truth. Activities are only as good as what you can get from them. Period. And that doesn't have to mean like they have to be the best. That just means, but I'm going to say it again, activities are only as good as what you can get from them. So now nostalgia glasses off. So, all right. So I'm going to put my nostalgia glasses on. I got them on. All right. Nostalgia glasses off. Was Volta Glass that great in 2014? Yes, in my opinion, but still, my nostalgia glasses are off, so I'm going to be honest here. Or did we really want Gallahorn / Icebreaker? Like, yes, Volta Glass was good, but being in there 3 times a week, every single week, it was because we wanted to get to level 30. It was because we wanted Galley. It was because we wanted Icebreaker, not just because Atheon on the 77th time was still just as fun. Was Crota really that good, or did we just want to flex to our friends that we were 32? I'm sure it was fun to use the sword, but how fun was it to stand on that balcony and just shoot Galley after a 1, 2, 3 count? It was fine, and I enjoyed it. So this isn't me trying to knock on my OG fun things that, in my opinion, changed not just Destiny, but gaming in general. But we were in there to get to 32. We were on a mission. Was comp really that good? Or did we just need Not Forgotten to compete? And we want it Not Forgotten. We need it Not Forgotten. We need it Mountaintop. We need it Recluse. And we can take it a step further. Was Trials of Osiris and Rise of Iron that good, or did we just want those Trials glows? No, I loved Trials, but I wanted those Trials glows. The same applies to Gambit. Gambit was the Corvette left out on the side of the road. Gambit was jumping when there was something to jump up and down about. Power creep and no sunsetting as well. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. Power creep and no sunsetting is part of this as well. But I want to go back to a time where everybody and their mom was playing. When everybody was trying to get the meatball to spawn for malfeasance. When everybody wanted breakneck. When everybody wanted 21% delirium. Even Gambit Jadestone in the Memento era. Gambit was a Corvette that has been left out in the sun for 5 years. So of course it's bad. No surprise. Any Corvette would be. But it didn't have to be. In the current state of Gambit, nothing is there that matters. There's not any of these things. And like I said, not having no sunsetting and power creep makes it where nothing really matters anyways. But like, let's just pretend that sunsetting and power creep were both put in check. There's nothing in Gambit to get excited about the way that there was. How about just one of those exotics? Just one that is like thrown in the past, or it's thrown in wherever. It's just a Gambit quest again. We got a farm for not a meatball, but now it's the spaghetti monster. And then after we do that, then we do a bunch of other stuff and we eventually get it. I bet that would get people back in there. But that draws another question. Should loot be locked into specific modes like the old days? Now, you're probably not going to like my answer. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. What happened to comp and Crucible in general? And so I know I'm no Walla, I'm no Panda, I'm no, whoever. But like, and so I'm not coming at this from the place of a PvP expert by any means. And I don't want to pretend to be, but I still do think that what I'm going to say here does apply. I think it's valid, in my opinion. Some will just say that the reason people aren't playing comp or Crucible in general is just because the sandbox is bad. In my opinion, that doesn't matter to the majority of players, especially not players like me. It could be good and people still wouldn't play it. The sandbox and trials could be good right now, and people like me still wouldn't play it right now. And maybe it is good right now. I don't even know. That's the crazy thing. I don't even know if it's good or not right now. But what I do know right now is there's nothing in there that I need. There's nothing in there that's going to stop me from being able to have the gameplay experience that I'm already having, nor is there anything that will make me look extraordinarily cool. That's the other thing. Looking very cool is another way to get people in there. It's proven to work before. And I think there was something on Twitter, and I don't want to go off too far on a tangent on this because I don't know if it's true, but said something about they decided like against having shiny glows in like trials or whatever for like sales or something. I don't really know. That I would have to see. I did see some like reports on that, but I don't know if that's true. So you never know what you see on Twitter these days, right? So we won't go there, but the only thing that we'll talk about is the reality right now, which is extremely cool looking things aren't in there, which is the reality. Things like Rose, they just won't cut it. That's not going to cut it. So what can I get? Like it or not, these were what got people playing. If Trials and Comp had something PvE players needed or made them look extremely cool, there would be an inflow. PvE players would complain a lot. They would complain a lot, but they would be playing. People were not happy, but they were playing for Mountaintop. People were not happy, but they were playing for Recluse. Back in the day, people were not happy, but they wanted Not Forgotten. People weren't happy, but they wanted a Luck in the Chamber as Luna. People might not have been Trials Warlords, but they wanted to look like that Titan. I'll tell you what, my Titan ended up looking like that, and I sucked at Trials. People wanted Scarabs and all these other rare and cool gems. Like I said, the sandbox being great, I know it's important. I know it's going to make a lot of great PvP players happy, but that's not going to cause the end flow that people think is going to happen. That'll make the hardcore PvP players happy, but right now, the core issue of why people don't play PvP at a high influx is because there's no purpose. And right now, because we're so power crept, because there's no sunsetting, we have everything we could possibly need in this game and then some. So why would you ever go into the Crucible for anything? There's nothing we need. And like I said, and then on the other lens, there's nothing that's extremely cool. So this brings up the question that I asked before. Should we force players to play modes they don't want to play? Let's go over both scenarios. If we say no, then what happens? Well, first, the player's happy. They get whatever they want quickly, so that instant gratification. They don't engage in other modes. The game populations dwindle, and then they go and play something else. That's the no route. But the key is they didn't complain, though. So maybe that's a consolation, right? No complaining. Yay, Bungie. Good job. What if we say yes? The player's unhappy. The player complains. Player really wants the weapon, though, so eventually they suck it up and decide to play. The population rises and gets healthier. When they get said weapon, they realized as awful as it was super rewarding, and they talk about those moments for years and years. I'm sure there was plenty of non-crucible warlords that really wanted thorns. They went in and struggled for that thorn quest for maybe months, and they eventually got it, and they probably still tell those stories to their friends, i.e. OG Thorn Quest, OG Chaperone Quest, Luna's, Mountaintop, Not Forgotten, Claymore, etc. It's not fun at first, and I will concede that. But by the end, it's fulfilling, and it felt like what you did meant something. We need to get back to it's okay that everyone doesn't have to have everything. And that's the root of this issue. Right now, the problem when everything was locked in, like let's say Crucible, like let's just use that for an example, like Recluse or Mountaintop or whatever, people were upset because it's like, why is it locked there? I should have it. So the problem is I should have everything. So put it everywhere so I can also get this, and not, hey, if I want this, maybe this isn't something that is necessarily for me, and either you concede that that's okay, it's okay that it's not for me, or you go work your butt off and get it. That's how it used to be. But now I think the big issue is that everybody feels like they have to have everything, and Bungie's building the game around that. And that doesn't lead to healthy modes. All right, bear with me again. Another hot take. Should Pinnacle weapons return? Hear me out. Hear me out. But first, what happened in Age of Triumph? Can we talk about that for a second? Sunsetting ushered in a new era in Taken King, where primaries no longer had elemental damage types. You remember that? Back in D1 vanilla, like Fatebringer was Arc, and it felt amazing, right? Or like Word of Crota was Void, and those legendary primaries in D1 felt amazing. But then we got to Taken King with Sunsetting. They made it where primary stopped having that elemental damage, and they just had primary damage, kinetic in today's D2 world. And so what happened when Age of Triumph rolled around? Well, they wanted to kind of give players a little taste of the past where we really did enjoy those primaries with elemental damages. So they added those back to the game in Age of Triumph. But what did they do for the sake of balance to make sure they didn't break things too badly? They made them exotics. So we had Fatebringer Adept. We had Chaos Dogma Adept. What if? What if? What if? Now, I'll preface this. I think crafting power creep and sunsetting needs to be addressed first. I think all of that needs to happen first. But if those things are addressed, I'll flat out say that I think Pinnacle should return. To keep things from being thrown out of balance, what if we did this? Just like we did to keep things from going out of balance in Age of Triumph. What if we had Pinnacle weapons, but they just were exotics? They were basically exotics anyways. You couldn't tell me that OG Not Forgotten wasn't an exotic. And all these other things. And then you know what happens then? Exotics start meaning something again. Because I gotta go get it. It's very good. And you can justify them being overly good. I think the problem was Bungie couldn't justify them being so overly good because they were legendary weapons at their core. But what if they weren't legendary weapons? Because they were really exotic weapons. Why don't we just make them exotics? And then throw them into these different things and make them insanely busted. But they're exotics. They can be busted. They're exotics. What if we just do this? Food for thought. One more thing. I'm going to say some numbers. Close your eyes. Close them. 30, 32, 34, 400. Do those numbers mean something to you? If you're a D1 OG, they probably did. Those numbers probably meant something. Power doesn't matter. Between us being super strong killing machines, fire team power, and the artifact, nothing really matters. I can do anything in the game, almost doing nothing these days in terms of keeping up. When you said 32, like when I said it in the last slide, you thought of Dark Below, the max power. And 34, you thought of House of Wolves. 30, you thought of Vanilla. 400 you thought of Rise of Iron Max. When you said those numbers, it meant something. It used to be a look at me type thing in the tower. So grinding your power felt meaningful because it's like, whoa, you were grinding that ascendant energy or those radiant shards or whatever and got your full set of Crota gear or Vogue gear to get to max. You're like, I know you put in the time. But now it's also wishy-washy. I don't know if somebody's high power because they're a Lost Sector warlord or if they're a season pass demon or if they're Bog the Witness Slayer. I don't know what they are these days. I can't look at somebody's power and instantly know how good or like not good, like that's not the word I want to use, but like how much they really were playing. Like it's no representation anymore. I don't know how much you were playing or what even you were playing, if you were even playing the high level stuff. I know it's not a popular opinion, but I miss it being locked behind some of the end game stuff because it gave reason to touch those parts of the game. Because like I said, outside of even like getting your weapons and stuff, part of the content ended up being like, well, I got to keep staying in there because I need shards. I need the armor, right? I understand that for the sake of inclusivity and for the sake of a wider market, that the decisions they made sense because in my opinion they did from that light. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's helping the case of things mattering. In my opinion, it's hurting the case. And I also feel the same about Guardian ranks, but that's going to be for a different video. So we won't talk about that now, but I do feel the same about Guardian ranks. I just think they need to make the number matter more. It's just hard to care. I don't care if I'm 2028 or 29 or 22 or number doesn't mean anything anymore. I don't even look at people's number anymore or anybody. I don't even look at my own number. I don't know what number I am. I think the era of the artifact really sent us in the wrong direction on power. I just think it's meaningless now. I haven't cared about power in so long. People are going to hate hearing it, like I said, but I think that the end game should be tied to max level. From a mattering perspective, not from a I guess wider market perspective. So I know that's a line that Bungie needs to teeter, but I'm just more talking about the current state we're in. Is all I'm talking about. Next, we're going to talk about a shift in DLC philosophy, which makes it hard to care past the first few weeks. So, what makes a DLC good? Why is something like Witch Queen looked at so favorably? To some and to some poorly. I know most people consider it a success, though. Like, I do know that, but I'm actually in the camp, and I know, like, there's been other outspoken people. We've kind of talked about these topics before. I know Sweat's talked about it. I know Evan's talked about it. I've talked about it, but yeah, we're going to talk about it now as well. I personally think Witch Queen made for a great first week experience, no doubt, but not a good year experience. I think, in my opinion, that's why when we got to Season of Plunger, we took a plunge. But after you play a campaign, no matter how cinema emote it is, like I know that these campaigns have been good. Ultimately, you aren't playing it a month later. It's not going to keep you playing months later. It's not going to keep you playing a few weeks later. It might even keep you playing the next week. DLCs these days do not keep people playing. They can boost DLC sales in pre-orders, and I'll concede to that for sure. I've always referred to Witch Queen as a beautiful car with a beautiful shiny paint job where none of the parts work, in my opinion. So once you drive it off the lot and enjoy it for a few days, you realize that every core aspect of the car is broken, but it looks good. I'm like, whoa, it looked really good. That campaign looked fantastic. What do you mean the core of the car doesn't work? But that's where we are. So the core wasn't built to last in these more, I would say, recent era of DLCs. And the core's not given the love that it needs. So it brings up the question, should a DLC be built for the peak first week moments or for an entire year with a focus, and I'm not even saying a main focus, but a focus on the core of the game? I think one philosophy boosts initial sales. I think the other boosts player yearly retention numbers. So right now, I feel like Destiny's living off of those first few week really high highs. And then we just ride out the lows until the next year of high highs. And I don't love that. I feel like Final Shape was the same way, unfortunately. Final Shape was a great first couple weeks, right? But then we fell off an insanely tall cliff. DLCs that were built with the entire year in mind normally had a very, very healthy core. Taken King and Forsaken, especially. I'm not going to say Taken King or Forsaken had a better first or second week than Final Shape or a Witch Queen. Even though, in my opinion, I think Forsaken did, but I'll concede that if we like put everything on paper, maybe there was more in the first couple weeks in a Final Shape in a Witch Queen. I'm not, no, I'm okay like conceding on that. But what I will say is after those first couple weeks, I mean, Taken King and Forsaken are better by a mile, by multiple miles. And so while Witch Queen and Final Shape were better first week experiences, maybe even better second week experiences, in terms of a yearly experience, they don't even belong in the same sentence. And it makes the rest of the year just feel like what's the point of anything after like really you had your campaign experience. How can DLCs help make things matter? Instead of such a focus on just the box office moments, which are still important in my opinion, that's how we get sales, put some tender love and care into the systems in place. It wasn't Crota being so monumental that players just wanted to play it a trillion times. And even though it was fun, they wanted Galley, they wanted 32, they wanted Icebreaker, they wanted Black Hammer, they wanted Hunger of Crota. It was the systems. The systems were in place to make you engage with all aspects of the content over that year. What do we have now? We have DLCs like Final Shape that are launching with less strikes than Curse of Osiris. Let that sink in. Final Shape at less strikes than Curse of Osiris. Back in D1, all this strike loot going into all these different strikes, and let me get Cloak of Tanics, let me get this, let me get that. Now we get one strike. And I know they're like, oh, hardest Grandmaster and all that stuff. You know, Grandmasters are fine. I got no problem with Grandmasters, but I don't think Grandmasters solve any of the root of these issues I'm talking about. I think that they can exist in parallel, and I think that Grandmasters are a good thing overall. I think there's a lot of people that love them, and I think they solve their own individual thing that more is on the side of difficulty, but not on purpose and core. I think it's in its own parallel silo. So I'm not a Grandmaster hater. I just don't think it's relevant in the context of anything we're talking about. So let's summarize. So if exotics don't matter because they're so easy that we get them before we can care, if without sunsetting anything, we have a million things that already work very well, like Lord of Wolves, Queen Breakers, that new loot doesn't even matter. If with crafting things are so easy to get that there's nothing that matters enough to go run home and tell your friends about. If we're so power crept that it's hard to be motivated to get anything new because we're killing machines. If raids give you everything you need to craft a weapon instantly, that new loot or the adept from the master don't matter. If strikes, crucible, and gambit give you no reason to play them because you no longer have strike loot, you no longer have pinnacle style weapons like mountaintop or not forgotten or very cool glows, or gambit where you have exotic quests sprinkled in and breakneck and 21% delirium and jadestone and mementos and stuff like that where you have no reason to play them. If power level doesn't actually mean anything, so you're not playing the game on a weekly basis trying to get power because it doesn't matter because it's all arbitrary. If DLCs only focus on the first couple weeks of the experience where the rest of the year doesn't feel like it matters, then what actually does matter? And I'm just going to answer this question as honestly as possible. If you're not a build gamer at this point, like I'm just be honest, if you don't love your builds, if the game isn't just like if it's not just let me get exotic so I can slot it into my build and be a killing machine. If that's not what made Destiny for you, and if that's not why you fell in love in Destiny, because I'm not going to argue that there's not people that didn't fall in love with Destiny for the build crafting. There's 100% a massive market there. I'll concede. I understand. But outside of the people that really get excited to instantly get a shiny new toy and slot it into their build, there's just not much there for the OG D1 old guard of people like myself where all these things I were describing that made us fall in love with Destiny. The jump up and down moments, the rarity, the scarcity, the run home and tell your friends in a party chat, the screenshot, the I'm sitting there acting like a 5-year-old when I'm 30 because I'm freaking out over Gallonhorn. This is why I do my challenges in Destiny the way that I do them, because you could just be like, well, why do you even play? You're talking about this because I love Destiny still, of course, but like I love the moments that Destiny, the dopamine that it gave me. And so the way I get that dopamine now is by being on a new account and starting fresh and setting an arbitrary limit of time to do certain things where there's that added pressure and that excitement that comes from it. But if I'm not doing that, like, there's not a lot of what I think made the old guard fall in love with Destiny, in my opinion, in the game anymore. And that's okay. The game doesn't always have to be for everybody. Not every game can be for everyone. But but I do understand that there are going to be a lot of people from the OG times where a lot of that magic just isn't there. And I think that's what Gathalion was describing. So how do we make things matter to close? I think exotics need to go back to feeling like exotics, bring randomness and rarity back when it comes to discovery, let the community have their own stories. It's okay that everyone doesn't have to have everything right away. Reintroduce the word that can't be said, sunsetting. We hate content vaulting, but I believe sunsetting is necessary. Maybe we can find some hybrid, like I suggested earlier, where maybe it's just the first couple weeks. Get a foothold on power creep. Make leveling more meaningful. When you see a number, let's get back to, wow, that number meant you did blah. Put a focus back on the core and the true why of what makes us play those activities. Pinnacle weapons, or a 2025 equivalent of something that causes excitement, or stuff that's really, really cool, like glows, will go a long way. Strike specific loot will go a long way. Sprinkling an exotic quest in Gambit will go a long way. I know people won't be happy playing all the activities, but they'll be playing. And I would rather have people complaining and playing and having the playlist healthy than no one complaining, the different playlist populations being in shambles and people playing other games. And then lastly, make crafting for participation, not for domination. And I'm not anti-crafting. I think crafting is a place. I think its place is, I'm a new player, how do I get started? Not, I'm a new player, how do I dominate? I'm not anti-crafting. I'm actually pro-crafting. Just not this crafting. Thank you. D1 exotic video on the way. We're getting really close. That video is just such a behemoth. It's like 4 hours right now. But that's really all I had. If you guys like this PowerPoint style, let me know. This is kind of how I used to present stuff at work. So I'm just kind of, I guess, using what little skills I have, if any of this even is considered a skill, to present things in a way that kind of felt a little reminiscent of how I used to present things in the past. If you do like it, let me know. Maybe we'll do some other topics like this in the future. I don't mind throwing together other decks if you do enjoy. Like I said, this was just because you guys had DM'd me about Astacross's video and how I think he had brought up that we were like an advocate for this topic. And him and I have talked a lot about this multiple times, about these topics. So he very much already knows how I feel about these things. But yeah, that's gonna do it for me. Let me know if you like it. And get in the comments, let me know your opinions. But let me know opinions. Don't just say things are bad. Give me reasons, please. All right. I'll see you guys later. Bye. I love you guys so much. Thanks, guys.